The world is on fire. Oil prices are surging. The Middle East is in conflict and the world trade is fracturing. And yet, here in Colombo, a man who left India back in 2008 for a short project but decided to build a bridge, a business bridge between two countries is here. And this is his story. Welcome to the show, Santosh.
Thank you so much, Shara, for having me on the road to greatness.
Thank you. In 2008, when you arrived in Sri Lanka, the civil war was still on.
Yes.
So, how did it impact in your work during that time?
To be honest, I don't feel there was that much of an impact. I actually originally came in 2003 and I was here till 2005. There was a period of time between 2009, in the late 2009, or middle 2009, when the war was ending, when there was a little bit of tension in Colombo. But I think overall, I can't really think of a time where I felt my business was impacted.
So, while you wanted to shift to Sri Lanka, how did your family and friends back in India responded?
No, I think when I first came here in 2003, I had felt so much at home. And then subsequently, I had gone off to Indonesia in 2005. But everyone in my family realized that I wanted to, and I felt the urge to get back to Sri Lanka as soon as possible. So they had visited Sri Lanka in that period, and they saw why I had loved this country so much. So yeah, I mean, there were some conversations around the war and the situation related to the war. But I think once I told them that I'm not really seeing any direct impact per se, they were quite satisfied and convinced. So I didn't have much of a convincing job to do in terms of my staying in Sri Lanka.
You came here for a short project. So, what was that moment or a particular person, or what was that particular thing that made you to think that you want to continue in Sri Lanka?
In retrospect, it was very clear that when I landed in Sri Lanka, I felt at home. I never realized that till I left Sri Lanka in 2005 and went to Indonesia. That's when I really started feeling that, I'm missing something badly. I'm missing the country, I'm missing the people, I'm missing my friends here. Basically, I missed everything about Sri Lanka. The greenery, the birds, the beaches, the mountains. So I missed everything. So I needed to get back, and thanks to God, I think I got an opportunity to get back, and here I am.
While your journey in Sri Lanka all these years, was there a particular professional moment of failure that taught you a lesson that success couldn't have taught?
Oh, there are many such moments, I would say, which has actually happened over the years. And I continue to go through significant business challenges, I have to be honest. It's not like as if ours is a smooth sailing business. We had a very good run between 2008 and 2016, after which I think, one went through a fairly significant business challenge, which we overcame. The pandemic posed a different challenge of its kind. Subsequently, the economic crisis posed a different challenge of its kind. And I think, again, we are having our own business challenges. But I guess that's the way it is with business. You will have your good days and your bad days, and you will have your ups and your downs. And I'm now reconciled to the fact that eventually, with business, one has to keep trying. You got to wake up every morning and say, I'm going to make this day count. And you try your best to make it count. That is the way it is. So for me, the big significant learning on business is to keep going and to keep having belief and confidence, and having the conversations with your friends when you're really feeling down and out, and sharing with your friends, family, the ones who care for you, and to chat with them and reveal what challenges you're facing, and seek their help and assistance when you need it. And then once you're back up again, to really enjoy those moments of triumph and to celebrate it.
India is the world's third largest economy. Major economy forecast at 7.5 GDP growth this fiscal year. The only major economy above 6%. And yet, oil prices are spiking, $100 per barrel. LPG costs are surging and the Strait of Hormuz is under pressure. Sri Lanka imports almost all of its crude oil, LPG from Middle East, Oman, Iraq and UAE. Every Sri Lankan feels the war under the gas cylinders and at petrol pumps. You believe India will keep growing despite this war? Make the case. Why does an escalating Middle East conflict doesn't derail India's economy compared to other economies?
Well, I think war is a very disruptive thing, and any war will not only disrupt India's economy but the global economy. And this particular war that's currently on has the potential for being particularly disruptive, given that the center of gravity of the world economy is moving from the west towards the east. I mean, 15 years ago, Asia contributed 35% of the world's global GDP. As we speak today, Asia is already contributing 50% of the world's global GDP. So Asia is already a big contributor of growth to the global economy. If you look at what's happening in the West, many of the countries are facing significant slowdowns in their economic growth. Whereas countries in this region, China, India, Indonesia, Thailand, Korea, all of these countries are doing significantly well, better than most countries in the West. The fact that this war has broken out in this region does have the potential to create impediments in the growth. But I also do think that, and I hope that rather than the war going on for months, that it will be a matter of weeks. That the war will end, because too many countries and their economies and their development is at stake with this war. So I think my view is that over the next 2-3 weeks, if this war continues, most countries will come together to find a way to solve the problem. So the short answer is yes, the war has the potential of disrupting the economy, but my hopeful view is that the powers in this region will not allow that to happen.
Sri Lanka almost imports all of its crude oil and LPG from the Middle East. Every household feels this war at the gas cylinder. 17 of Sri Lanka's last 21 fuel shipments, they came from India. Is India the answer to this energy vulnerability? And should Sri Lanka be structuring formal, long-term oil and LPG cylinder agreements with India as a matter of national security, not just trade convenience?
The short answer to that is yes. But the long answer is that given the fact that Sri Lanka has had several shocks starting from the pandemic, my firm view is that the time has come for Sri Lanka to bite the bullet and move forward and have a long-term economic agreement with India to safeguard itself from some of these shocks. India is a country with which many Western countries are now doing FTAs. Just in the last couple of years, regions like the EU, New Zealand, even the United States have all done significant economic agreements with India, because I think there's a clear understanding that the market of consumers with disposable income has moved from the west towards the east.
True.
And India by itself has about a 350 million middle class.
Yeah.
But Sri Lanka, sitting so close to the neighborhood, has not still signed any economic agreement beyond the 2000 year 2000 FTA, which is currently still running. But I think India and Sri Lanka together need to kind of renew that and look at a modern agreement which actually underscores and underpins many of the key issues that might be of interest to both Sri Lanka and India. And I would say some of the issues are energy security, digital integration, maritime security, physical connectivity. All of these areas, I think India and Sri Lanka must combine together and do a significant agreement which covers all of these aspects.
Great. And over 1 million Sri Lankan workers are working in Gulf countries, and their remittances are the lifeline for the families and for this economy at this point of time.
Correct.
For the recovery. If the conflict escalates and those jobs disappear from the market, what is the fallback, and does LIBA have a role to play in that?
Well, let me put it this way. I think obviously there'll be a huge impact. And let me tell you, the impact will not only be for Sri Lanka, but even for India, because actually 9 million Indians work in the Gulf. So having 9 million Indians who currently send significant remittances, especially to states like Kerala, all of these states can suffer if this war gets worse and results in so many livelihoods being lost. My optimistic opinion is that's unlikely to happen. And that, like I said earlier, the war is likely to end, I hope, will end in weeks rather than in months. From a Lanka India Business Association perspective, our intent is to forge closer business relations between Sri Lanka and India. And I think we have a role, and I'm playing that role as we speak, of having conversations and talking about the need to unlock the policy barriers that prevent India and Sri Lanka becoming closer together economically. I think that's one conversation I can continue to have. But as a Lanka India Business Association president, I would also like to state that we are happy to help Sri Lankan businesses who are looking at India as an opportunity to find ways of getting into the Indian market, navigating the Indian market, and exploiting the Indian market to the best of their ability. So that's what I can say.
India hasn't condemned the US strikes. Yet an Iranian warship had just participated in India, hosted naval exercises, was sunk near Sri Lanka. From a business and investment credibility standpoint, does India's strategic silence protect or hurt its trade partnerships?
See, I think the days of the way in which diplomacy is done has changed dramatically. In the older days, when there was a Cold War, you condemned somebody and you stood by somebody. I think in today's world, with a significant multilateral exercise happening, it's not about coming out there and condemning one person or aligning with another person. It's about realizing that it's about national interests, and whatever suits national interests of countries, those countries will do. From an Indian perspective, I don't necessarily call it strategic silence. I call it as a guarded approach, and I think the relationships between India and Iran is an old civilizational relationship. India did give supported having one of the Iranian Navy ships was docked in Kochi. In fact, out of the 3 ships that was there in the exercise, I believe one of the ships sought permission from the Indian authorities and was given permission to dock in Kochi, which meant that it was protected in Indian territorial waters. Just recently, in the last couple of days, I think the Indian government and the Iranian government have had significant talks, and Indian ships laden with fuel have traveled through the Strait of Hormuz and have come into India. So it just shows that ultimately the diplomacy is working. And in whatever way the Indian government is traversing these turbulent waters, it is at this point in time clear that it is working in the best interests of India.
That's true. And I had been following you for a long time. And you use the word exploit when it comes to Sri Lanka's relationship with India, not in a critic way, but a strategic way. Explain exactly what you mean by that, and what should Sri Lanka be doing that it isn't now?
So I have to tell you that that particular line of exploit and not integrate I have taken that from a gentleman called Nilandan Nirudan, who's the head of a security think tank called Class. In one of his interviews, he said that when you say integrate with India, everyone gets worried in Sri Lanka, thinking that, oh my God, are we going to lose sovereignty? But then if you use the word exploit, everyone in Sri Lanka thinks, oh, that means we are being clever. And we are using our skills and our intelligence and our cleverness to get the best out of India. And so they'll be more open to the idea of exploiting rather than to the idea of integrating. So that was based on Nilantan's cue, and I've just kind of taken, so I have to give him credit for it. I have taken the cue from his presentations, and I think it's a very it's a very smart thing to do, which is not talk about integrate, but talk about exploit. At the end of the day, in today's world, everyone's doing things to suit their interests most. And I think it is in Sri Lanka's immediate and short-term and medium-term interests to find ways of making full use of the huge economic growth that India is currently seeing, and making sure that Sri Lanka secures its economic future by closely associating with India's economic growth and benefiting from it.
India in 2026 has shifted from emergency support execution, investments, connectivity, digital collaboration, technology cooperation. What does that mean practically for a Sri Lankan entrepreneur who is right now watching this from their home? How does it affect them?
No, so I think let's go step by step. There were 21 billion UPI transactions in India in January 2026. 21 billion. So by far, the largest number of digital transactions, online digital transactions, is happening in India. That's a huge amount of learning for Sri Lanka to use, because by virtue of this whole UPI open stack system that India has, there's a tremendous process in play where cash is hardly in use, and everyone from the street vendor to the roadside vendor, some people say even beggars nowadays are using UPI QR codes to get money into their digital accounts, into their into their bank accounts. It also means that many people who are part of the disorganized economy, which was a large number in India, has now become part of the organized economy. All these mean a lot from a Sri Lankan perspective, given that Sri Lankan economy is also looking at bringing in a lot of the people who are currently not part of the formal economy into the formal economy again. This will widen the tax net. This will make sure that the state gets more money. This will make sure that the country has the money to pay back in 2028 when the money is due to be paid back. This will also make sure that the conveniences for the consumer is significantly bigger and better than what it was earlier. It will also make sure that you're not ending up spending money on credit card companies and credit card offerings, and that a lot of the money stays within the country, and that it doesn't need to go out into a foreign country and then come back. So, I mean, there are many benefits to that. So, digital connectivity is a significant element, and I think given how much India has progressed on that front, it makes sense that Sri Lanka is trying to duplicate some of that and replicate some of that through the unique identity project that Sri Lanka is undertaking at the current moment. From a physical and oil connectivity, energy connectivity perspective, my view is that just recently when this oil crisis happened, as it's ongoing, my understanding is that the pipeline between India and Bangladesh has got activated, and India has actually already sent 5,000 metric tons of diesel to Bangladesh. If such a facility existed between India and Sri Lanka, I think Sri Lanka would have felt more secure and more assured, and wouldn't have felt as nervous as we are all feeling currently about the future of the future of our oil supply. So from that perspective, there's a learning that we need to expedite this connectivity, connectivity, pipeline connectivity project, so that we are safe from future shocks. There's also an electricity grid connectivity conversation that's going on. And the benefit of that is twofold. One is India can send electricity to Sri Lanka, but equally, given the potential for Sri Lanka to develop solar power and a lot of renewable power, it is highly possible that Sri Lanka can actually start exporting electricity back into India, which can make the renewables a significant source of foreign exchange for Sri Lanka. So that opportunity also exists. So from a connectivity perspective, that's one very important thing. And last but not the least, a slightly controversial topic, the physical bridge between India and Sri Lanka. Lot of conversations, and every time I talk about it, I get comments on social media where they say, no, 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 we don't want to build a bridge with India and all of that. But I do think that if you start building a bridge today, it will take you 12 to 14 years to build the bridge. 14 years from today, India will be one of the largest economies in the world. And if you have a land bridge connecting you to one of the largest economies in the world, every other economy in the world will be looking at trying to be present in Sri Lanka to access the South Indian market, which is just across the ocean.
That's a very interesting point.
Yes.
Because in our old literature, we have come across Ramayana, where we had a bridge multiple years ago.
Exactly.
And it's a very interesting thing.
Well, the only thing I wouldn't equate it to Ramayana bridge because the Ramayana bridge has implications of Indian troops coming from India to Sri Lanka. I don't think the intent is that at all. This is a bridge that is meant to bring prosperity to Sri Lanka, not a Ramayana kind of a bridge.
Okay.
I'm just clarifying that so that nobody confuses the intent behind the bridge. I think the intent behind the bridge is simple. You will have access to one of the largest economies in the world, and all kinds of connectivity is important. You already have great connecting flights, and ferry connections need to improve. If you also have a land bridge, that makes it even more easier to connect to India and the South India, which is a growing part of. Yeah.
And currently, the electricity of Sri Lanka, the connection, has been privatized. And what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know too much about it. But to the extent that I understand that the intent behind splitting it into so many companies is to start building all of the measures required to create this connectivity and infrastructure required to move from your current system of coal and gas electric generation to a renewable system. So if indeed that is the case, and my understanding is right, then that would be the right way to move forward.
Wow. India is projected to become the world's third largest economy by 2030. India provided Sri Lanka with 780 million in grant assistance and was the first nation to step forward during the 2022 economic collapse. Indian FDI accounts for an estimated 40 to 50% of total FDI into Sri Lanka when investments routed through subsidiaries are counted. The relationship is deep, but is it deep enough?
No, I don't think so. My view is that the potential for the relationship between India and Sri Lanka is significantly more. I'll give you a couple of statistics. We celebrate the fact that the largest number of tourists in Sri Lanka come from India. And we always quote a statistic that 780,000 Indians are coming to Sri Lanka out of the 3 million, I think 2.5 million who came last year. Fact of the matter is 30 million tourists go out from India around the world. And only 782,000 come here. Given that Sri Lanka is so close to India in terms of geography, the moot question is, why can't we get more Indians? And my second question is, are we getting the right kind of Indians? Of course, we are getting some, good Indian traffic. But the ambition in my mind from a tourism perspective should be to get the Indian who spends, significantly more than what the Indians who come here currently spend. So we need to get the right kind of Indian tourist into Sri Lanka. The right kind of Indian tourist will find Sri Lanka interesting because they're looking for great experiences. And my strong view is Sri Lanka has wonderful experiences to offer. They will be willing to pay the price for those very good quality experiences, but you need to target them and go after them. So that's one part of it. Second part of the conversation, you mentioned, investments between India and Sri Lanka and 40-50% of the investment, FDI, etc. But reality is, in the last couple of years, I don't think India has invested more than $1 billion in Sri Lanka. And I think most of the investment in the last couple of years came from ITC and a couple of other CWIT and all of those. But Indians are investing 30 billion. Last year, Indians invested 30 billion US dollars worldwide. Just now, an announcement was made by President Trump that Reliance is investing a significant amount in building a refinery in the US.
Yes.
He mentioned a $300 billion figure. I'm not too sure about that figure. There are other people who say it's a $3 billion figure, but whatever that figure might be, there are Indians investing around the world in significant numbers. I don't think we're getting enough FDI from India either. I think the key issue that prevents this from happening is the current policy issues, matters that prevent uh, investors in India seeing this investment as beneficial in Sri Lanka, and similarly, people in Sri Lanka who are businessmen considering India to be a very challenging place to make money out of. And I think that is something that we need to work on and change.
LIBA launched last year. Every business chamber says it builds bridges. What makes LIBA different from the previous chambers?
Yeah, I think all chambers are working towards one goal. We wouldn't call ourselves, strictly speaking, a chamber. Our intent behind doing this was to primarily focus on Sri Lankan businesses who want to go to India and handhold them in that process. I found many people, when I speak to Sri Lankans, they say, India is a tough market. We don't know how to navigate India. We are scared of going to India. We don't know where to start. No one we know is able to advise us in a correct way about going to India. So I think LIBA primarily we decided would focus on that part of it, which is to tell Sri Lankan businesses who are serious about India, we have an advisor in India. We can advise you on how to look at India. India is a large country, 29 states. Each state, to my mind, is a country economically. And I'm saying that even if some of the Sri Lankan brands were to go to 2-3 countries in India and do well, they would make significantly more money than they're currently making in Sri Lanka. The benefits of that for Sri Lanka is not so much that these guys will be investing in India, but that actually, since the product is going to be based out of Sri Lanka, we will be using the Indian market to create jobs within Sri Lanka. So it's a direct way of benefiting Sri Lanka. And our intent is, instead of going to Europe and America to look at customers and consumers with purchasing power, it's time the Sri Lankan businesses looked at the Indian market and understood that the Indian market and the Indian consumers have got the purchasing power now to buy their products, and and they must have the confidence to go to India and try their luck. Because if some of the big businesses in Sri Lanka are able to go and crack the Indian market, my view is that Sri Lanka will benefit, and the Sri Lankan consumer, the Sri Lankan masses will benefit. Job creations will happen. Quality of life also can improve in Sri Lanka if there's a better integration between Sri Lankan businesses and Indian economy.
What is the biggest misconception do you think the Sri Lankan entrepreneurs have about India that is restricting them?
Oh, actually, there isn't one. There are many. So I would say, and some of those some of those things are also valid. See, India is not an easy place to do business. It's not like we go in there, we put a product out in the marketplace, and then we are guaranteed success because there are so many consumers. Within India, within each state, there are significant entrepreneurial communities, and if any product or any category is successful, they will find a way of challenging you in those markets. So success in India is never easy, but given the fact that India is a growing market, success in India can be very rewarding. I think it depends on the commitment, the resilience, and the zeal of the entrepreneur in Sri Lanka to stay in the long run in India and succeed from the size and the scale of the. But then, of course, there are beliefs that that our products can never do well in India. That we are from a pricing perspective, we will never succeed. My personal view is, even if Sri Lankan products are priced higher, some of the products I know are of a higher quality. And Indians will pay more money for higher quality. Recently, somebody asked the Dilma family members in a conversation, when some Indians had come down saying, "Why aren't you more available in India? Because we are willing to pay premiums for your product." And I think that's the way it is. There is a segment in India who will pay more money for better tea, who will pay more money for better rubber products, pay more money for better sausages, packaged foods, processed foods, and Sri Lanka has a lot of those things. So it's just a question of having the entrepreneurial zeal to say we are going to make India mission.
That's true. I feel compared to the previous time, currently the Indian population, they're giving priority to the quality as well.
Yes, yes.
That's one of the truth. And as you say, the India is a growing economy. If Sri Lanka needs to make a ride on that growth, what are the industries do you think that are untapped that Sri Lankan entrepreneurs can reach out to instead of tea, textile, and tourism? What are the other industries?
Sure, I have an answer to that, to be honest, because I don't think, I can really say what are the untapped. I mean, ultimately, it has to be something that Sri Lanka provides that's not there in India. I think most of the product categories in which Sri Lanka is good exists in India, but I would definitely think that some of the product categories, Sri Lanka product quality is better. It's just about Sri Lanka taking a higher quality product and playing in the market and getting the right niche in the right markets within India to get the to get significant chunks of the Indian market. But having said that, I still think tourism is an opportunity because most Indians don't really still know the opportunity that India really understand the opportunity that India provides. So that, to my mind, is a is a significant tourism opportunity, and I think I continue to believe that that's something that they should focus on.
Earlier, you said right kind of tourist. And what do you define by that?
The guy who spends $500 per night at least, not the guy who spends $50 a year a night. See, I'll tell you, my observation is that the Sri Lanka India tourism circle has become a self-fulfilling prophecy of discounts and undercutting. Indians come thinking that we should go to Kandy, Nuvarelia, Bentota, Hikadwa, Sigiriya and go back in 4 days. Since Indians think like that, when an Indian calls a local travel agent, that guy will say, okay, I'm going to offer him $60. He's going to negotiate with me. Then I'll offer him $45. So then what happens is you end up getting only those kind of tourists who do that route between Sigiriya, Kandy, Tooth Relic Temple, Nuvarelia, Bentota, Hikadwa, back to India. But Sri Lanka has much more to offer. There are Indian tourists who are looking for, all kinds of tourism. Like, I know many people who would love to go and see the blue whales. Very few people know that in Galoya there are swimming elephants. Golfing tours. I know some of my friends old friends who are living in Sri Lanka, Indian friends, come and do golfing tours. In reality, there are many people in India who love to go do golfing tours. Who's offering them those golfing tours? Even things like seaplanes. It's quite a luxury in India. And if you do a seaplane tour of the island, that can become a great experience for Indians. There's a sunken treasure opportunity off the coast of Colombo. Can we do something about that? Can we promote that to Indians? So there are many experiences that Sri Lanka has which can attract a certain kind of Indian who's willing to come and pay that money for that experience. We need to do a marketing communications campaign targeting the right consumer in India with those experiences.
And I think in India, wedding is a multi-billion-dollar
Yes,
industry.
yes.
And currently, there are few weddings taking place in Sri Lanka, but most of them are moving across East Asia and the Middle East,
Yes.
where this particular war might have changed things.
Yeah.
And do you think Sri Lanka stands an opportunity with the destination wedding market at this point?
I would think so. I agree completely. I think Sri Lanka can be an amazing place for a destination wedding. And like you say, in the recent past, there have been a few, but I'm sure there can be more.
You have focused specifically on India's 5 southern states as the priority zone. Why South India and not Mumbai and Delhi?
Yeah. I think I was primarily focusing on something that's very close to Sri Lanka. I think if you really look at it, there are 7 or 8 states in India which have a per capita GDP higher than Sri Lanka and a market growth rate higher than Sri Lanka and a population, which is also kind of significant for Sri Lankans to get excited. I think some of the other states include Gujarat, Maharashtra, Haryana. These are all growing economies. But actually speaking, the reason I'm referring to the five southern states is because of proximity. You have access to the five southern states. People will travel more if they have to come from Mumbai to Chennai than they have to go from Colombo to Chennai. Colombo to Chennai is easier travel than Mumbai to Chennai.
Sure.
So if you have goods and services targeting the southern market, which is using Sri Lanka as a base to target South India, it's a great opportunity for companies to do that. I mean, if you have the right kind of trade agreement where Indians can come here and produce even for India, that would be a wonderful opportunity.
10 years from now, if we paint the picture, what does the India-Sri Lanka economic corridor look like in 2036 if both countries get this right?
Well, I see Sri Lanka's GDP going from 4,500 per capita to $8,000, $9,000 per capita. And I see many countries, especially European, Japanese, setting up operations here to service the Indian market. I see Sri Lankan youngsters who are professionals returning to Sri Lanka to be able to work for these multinationals and use their skills for products and services targeted at India. I see rich Indians coming to Sri Lanka to get married, to have experiences, young Indians exploring. I see the relationship between India and Sri Lanka being at its best ever so that the country is safeguarded from any kind of economic shocks caused by weather, climate, or geopolitics. Our previous ambassador called Sri Lanka and India civilizational twins. And I think it will be wonderful if the civilizational twins can be twinning their growth stories together as well. Of course, all of these things that I see are on the belief that, the Indian economy will continue to grow at the pace it's growing. And there are several assumptions because 10 years is a long time. A lot of things can happen in 10 years. But one has to be optimistic and believe that things will always be right. In which case, I think many of the things I'm saying today could well come true. We could compare notes in 2036.
Yeah, hoping for the best to happen. The 25-year-old free trade agreement between India and Sri Lanka is now under review. As someone who sits in the middle of this relationship, what should Sri Lanka choose and why does this matter really matter for most people to realize?
I think it's important to move the relationship beyond the ambit of the terms of the old FTA. Because the old FTA 25 years ago was built on the basis of many of the products and services that Sri Lanka and India had to offer each other. It was also created at a time when India was far more protectionist than it is today. So I think there is an opportunity to review all of it and make sure that Sri Lanka can benefit from the size and scale of the Indian market through its products, be it cinnamon, tea, rubber, garments, and also to see what other areas that Sri Lanka can actually benefit from India from. Could it be IT services? Or could it be legal services? I don't know. But I think one needs to really look at this very closely and look at how to broaden the ambit so that it just doesn't become a question of allowing a few products access to each other's markets, but far more comprehensive, where Sri Lankans potentially should be able to go and work in India in certain kind of positions without having too much of an hassle. So all of those things need to be reviewed.
True. It needs to be a win-win for both the nations.
100%.
Sri Lanka defaulted on its debt. Investor confidence was like shattered during the time. Why should an Indian investor in Bangalore or Chennai trust the Sri Lankan market again? And what would you personally say to convince those investors?
Sri Lanka is in your neighborhood. You have access to the Indian market from Sri Lanka like no other market can give you. Sri Lanka has a skilled workforce. Sri Lanka has robust laws, and the legal system is a very strong legal system. Sri Lanka, being in India's neighborhood, is likely to ride on India's economic growth and therefore is also poised for significant growth in the future. And the fact that many Indian companies are looking at international operations to kind of diversify their products and services means that they should also look at Sri Lanka as an opportunity. I mean, last and not the least, from their own personal perspective, the lifestyle and the quality of life Sri Lanka will have to offer to entrepreneurs, with the right money bracket, etc., could be significantly better than even what most Middle Eastern countries can give you.
That's true. India and Sri Lanka are now building a digital public infrastructure partnership. Aadhaar model digital ID, UPI payments accepted across Sri Lanka. Currency interoperably being explored. Is the future of this relationship digital more than physical? And what does that mean for jobs and for the young people of Sri Lanka?
Yeah. Like I said, India has already done 21 billion transactions in January 2026. It's on the basis of this whole UPI, DPI model. Definitely, the future of the world is, and money transactions is going to be digital. The fact that India and Sri Lanka are going to operate on similar models provides great opportunities for Indian and Sri Lankan businesses also to feel confident and secure about integrating their own financial systems together. From an India-Lanka currency perspective also, it is a good thing because you may not have to rely on an international currency and rely on international currency fluctuations to determine your trade. We could potentially have our own system of currency and exchange rate, etc. So these are all possibilities, and I think we should explore it. And I do think this is a great form of connectivity for the future.
You recently acted in a Sri Lankan teledrama. How was that experience? Because generally, if we are talking about a president of a chamber, that doesn't mean that it's not a normal thing on your CV. How was that experience?
Oh, yeah, that's a pure personal thing. So, basically, I think those guys saw this bearded guy with jewelry and decided that probably I can be the villain that they wanted in the serial. And from my personal growth perspective, I've never acted in a TV serial before. So, given the fact that they asked me the question, I felt, well, I've not done this before. So, why not see if I can learn something new? And I really thought it was amazing. I was acting with some of the best. I was the only zero non-actor person in a cast full of amazing actors. So I learned a lot. I had only 5 scenes, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning how to do those small little scenes, 5-6 minute scenes, some of which where I had to speak. Great experience. I'm used to being behind the camera because of a variety of reasons, but I'm never used to acting like a different character ever before. So as a person who's constantly curious and wanting to learn, I was curious and I wanted to learn how to do this. I don't know if I can do it again, but I thought whatever I did was reasonably okay because I see people in the streets coming and telling me nowadays, oh, Natkiya actor, etc., which makes me feel good. The fact that, some people seem to recognize that I was there in this play, etc., it's always a nice feeling. So, so yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily see a connection between that and what I do with LIBA. I know most people who are in LIBA don't watch teledramas, so they don't even know that I'm in the serial. But the kind of people who watch the teledramas are mostly the masses. And I get to see that a lot when I'm in restaurants, etc. The guy who's serving me comes and tells me, "I saw your, I saw your teledrama, etc." So it makes me feel nice.
So, do you feel that after this teledrama experience in Sri Lankan context, the people perceive you very differently?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that teledrama had that much of an impact. It's a small teledrama. I had a small role. I mean, teledrama was a big teledrama, but I was playing a very small role in that, so nothing really. I don't think that has had any impact. It just had an impact for me internally, making me feel good about the fact that I tried something different and I was not bad. So.
After 22 years, two cultures, one language adaptation, do you speak Sinhala?
I can understand, but I can't speak.
Okay. So, are you more of an Indian or Sri Lankan at this point of time? Please don't tell me your passport is Indian, heart is Sri Lankan.
You heard that.
I prefer some complicated answer.
Yeah, no, it is very complicated. It's very difficult to say. I do feel completely at home in Sri Lanka. When I land in Katunayake, I'm at home. And I have to say, I don't feel the same about any part of India anymore. When I travel to India, I'm traveling to another country. But when I'm in Sri Lanka, I feel at home. So to that extent, I'm more Sri Lankan now than I'm an Indian. But I always also say, you would have heard me say, you can take an Indian out of India, but you can't take an India out of an Indian. So I think I continue to repeat that because in reality, there is a connection to India which is far deeper than the physical connection. So that connection will always remain. And given the fact that I'm always consciously thinking about my future in Sri Lanka and how I can make it better, then I'm also thinking about how to make sure that we exploit India to its best possible, so that Sri Lanka can benefit from that from that relationship. I hope that was complicated enough.
It was.
Okay, good.
So, I also have seen you posting a lot of videos on fitness. You're a fitness enthusiast. So, what does your morning look like? And as a fitness enthusiast, how much of an impact it has on your decision making, whether it's business or personal life?
Yeah. No, I think fitness has been an integral part of my life over the last 5, 6 years. I really enjoy my practices. I actually have a group of friends with whom I practice every morning on Zoom. We started during the pandemic, and we are continuing it with some of my friends. I kind of devised a body weight practice where I actually say that when we are children, the first thing we do is we roll on the floor, then we crawl, then we stand, and then we never go back to the ground. My practice is all based on the ground. We roll a lot, we crawl a lot, we jump a lot. I do a lot of practices on the floor primarily because I now believe that we've reached a stage in our life where we are not looking for building huge muscles, or we're not going out there to walk the ramp to show off your sleeveless bodies, but you are actually going out there with the intention of being functionally fit. I tell my friends that even when you're 80, you should be able to get out of bed, pick up reasonably heavy luggage, and be able to do things by yourself without relying on other people. So my functional fitness focus is purely about flexibility, strength, and cardio stamina, to the extent that we are able to do all of the things we need to do without struggling. I mean, I could never climb a tree when I was in school and college, but I can now climb a tree. So that makes me feel really good. So those are the kind of things I like to do. Where when you're going out, you should be able to climb things, you should be able to explore nature, all of that. So some of the strength I'm developing now. So I'm very happy with that, and I think most of my friends who are doing this with me are also completely focused and able to able to follow our practice and gain from it. I mean, I do simple practices. I made people sit and stand up without hand support 100 times.
That's really great.
So,
So when things are genuinely hard in life, sometimes there are tough situations in business, there are sometimes breakups in relationship. So how do you handle them? What is your do think at that point of time?
I think there is a certain, I have realized now that there is a certain reliance on faith. I wouldn't call myself strictly religious, but I definitely am a spiritual person. I believe that there is a, that everything that happens to you happens for a reason, and that with every challenge comes an opportunity, and that everything that's thrown at you is thrown at you to make you stronger in some way. I like to look at it like that. Some things are more painful than the others, but I think so far at least I have felt pain has helped me, has shaped me to kind of look at life in a far more humble way. Um at the end of the day, things happen. I don't personally take credit or discredit for some of the things that happen. I would normally think it has happened for a reason. You know, so that's broadly it. I think faith is a very important part, and then I would also think very close friends and family are always a pillar to seek support from. And I know that in the recent past, when I've gone through some stressful times, it's been my closest members of my family who kind of stood up and supported me, both in Sri Lanka and in India. So that's the way I see it, at least from my personal experience.
And how do you define spirituality? And how has it shaped your journey towards success?
Ah, see, I'm not even sure that I would categorize myself as a success yet. I think I'm still very much on the journey. Um, so I wouldn't claim to be a successful person. I'm just following my dreams. I'm just following my urges and ambitions and doing the things which I think is right. Whether I'm successful or not is not for me to judge. Uh, on the spirituality front, it's just about realizing that that some things are not within your control, but then you need to keep um, having an intention, setting an intention, having the faith, doing the things you need to do, and believing that at the end of the day, the things will turn out the way you'd like them to turn out, or the things will turn out that will support your development as a human being. I'm going beyond just it turning out the way I want it to turn out, because that's not that only adds more stress to the situation.
I understand. You're taking things as it comes and going with
Exactly,
the flow.
exactly.
It's beautiful. What is one belief that you hold about success, but the rest of the society might disagree with you?
Yeah. See, I don't think, for me, when I think about success, I think about it as a sense of feeling of peace of mind. At the end of the day, success means knowing that you don't need to worry about many ordinary worldly things that you normally would worry about. To me, in a sense, that is, I would define success like that. And also, success is achieving some of the things which you probably set out to do, and you've been able to do all of those things. You've been able to kind of meet your goals, goals you set for yourself, whether it is financial, whether it is professional, whether it is career wise. When you meet those goals and and then you achieve them, then that's what success is. But success for me is, I think in anyone's life, success is not a final goal, in the sense it is an ongoing process. It never ends. I mean, till the time you say now it's over and I stop doing what I'm doing, you are constantly chasing success.
True.
And, today you're successful in something. Oh, now I've done this. Now what's the next thing that I'm doing? So it's not an end goal. It's a constant movement towards success.
If LIBA achieves everything that you have imagined in 20 years, what does the India Sri Lanka relationship look like? And what is LIBA's fingerprint on that particular story?
Yeah, I think if LIBA succeeds in the way we are conceiving it to succeed, I would hope that in the next 10, 20 years, we are able to take at least 10 or 20 Sri Lankan businesses and make them successful in India.
Mm.
Uh, at least help them to set up and guide them through the tough times and the challenging times. That probably is what I would look at as, because at the end of the day, given the fact that there are some success stories of Sri Lankan companies doing well in India, like Brandix and Damro, and I even always refer to Yohani as a success story
Okay.
in India, because by virtue of the fact that she managed to crack that song, which did really well in India. But at the end of the day, I would like that number to be significantly more. And I would like youngsters in Sri Lanka to start looking at India as the place of their future economic dreams.
The final question is, a young person who is watching this show right now, they might have the idea, they might have the ambition, but they might not have the connections. What would be your guidance and suggestion for those youngsters over there?
So, in today's world, the internet makes the world a really small place. If you connect even to places like LinkedIn and connect with the right people, with the right businesses, with the right individuals, that's your way for connecting with the outside world. I think I know for a fact that so many youngsters connect with me online, wanting to know more about LIBA, wanting to know how I can help them, having that fire in their belly to make things happen. Ultimately, I think, it's an urge that comes from within. If you have enough of a fire in the belly, you will go out there and get things done. And I know young people are the ones with the maximum fire in the belly. So I believe that they will be smart enough and find the methods of connections to the right people, to the right organizations, to the right establishments to make their dreams come true.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much.